time like the present. Well, let's call the meeting to order at 7:01. You ready, Dave?
Good.
All right, same deal. I gotta try to remember to use the mics for people to be able to hear on the recordings, not only in this room. So let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk Hearn, could you do a roll call, please?
Roll call. Supervisor Bertrand.
I am here.
Clerk Fern here.
Is that mic working for you there?
I think so. Can you hear it?
Nope.
Yeah,
You'll have to get a little closer to it.
all right. Treasurer House.
Here.
Trustee Monet.
Here.
Trustee Detmer.
Here.
All present.
Okay, thank you. Well, welcome everybody for coming out on a cold, snowy night. A couple of things had to change on the agenda. We'll get to that. First of all, we have a COVID protocol in place. One of the township board members was exposed. Not testing positive or anything like that, but we're going to take the precautions that were given to us by Munson and Grayling and work through that. So there are masks back there if you so choose. And he will distance himself the appropriate amount from us. So that should take care of that. As far as the agenda itself, for additions or deletions, there will be an addition. This agenda here is different than the one that was posted. I cannot keep up with these things. They change every day, several times a day. It's almost an exercise in futility to put it out a week ahead of time. This one in particular was really late, and that's on me. But I'm going off of the current one, which is on the back table there. The additions would be the COVID exposure, the protocol. Number 12 on the agenda, which is actually number 10 on this. Hang on a minute. Yes, number 10 on this paper is to add under the small letter A, we will need to discuss board support for the supervisor to do the budget based on the CPA's advice. We had a CPA, two of them we talked to here. And on the new budget, the small letter B is not on there because I struck it off. But if you happen to be looking at an old one, you would strike B. So those two changes are what I am proposing. I would move that we approve the agenda as modified. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda as modified?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Okay, the motion carries. The next thing on the agenda is up on the top. We're actually not even in the agenda. We're at the top of this page, started with COVID protocol. Is the Winterfest, and I wanted to congratulate everybody for a great job. I went down there with my grandson. The chili cook-off was great. There was a lot of people hanging out at the pavilion. But I personally wanted to thank all the fire department and EMS that worked so hard on that in terrible weather. And all the volunteers, because I think everybody volunteered for the pancake breakfast except me, which why I wasn't there to eat pancakes kind of escapes me, but I thought that came off really well, and everybody that I saw was smiling. I don't know if any of the other board members want to make a comment on that.
Well, I'd like to
Feel
say,
free.
yes, I'd like to say that there was about 35 volunteers and police and fire there, and 8 customers when we started. But near the end, 3 tables were loaded with people, maybe 4 people, maybe 4. So, maybe 4 tables. So there might have been 30, 40 people there at any given time. But again, great job. And the service was just fine, and the coffee was outstanding. That's, Kahlua would have made it a little better, but it's okay. It's okay. Yeah, great job, guys.
Anybody else? Okay, so I have on here, is there any feedback from you or anybody here who was there? What can we do, what can we look to do next year to make it even better or to make it smoother or whatever you think might be a good addition to a great event? We could certainly write it down now and get it in the works for planning for next year.
More business in the chili cook-off would be nice. I think there was only 5 when they showed up out of 7.
Oh, as far as making the chili?
Yeah, you gotta have a business in order to enter it.
Oh, business sponsor, okay.
More advertising.
That's a biggie. That, I'm still astounded that we never got anything. Okay. See if we can make it better next time. So business advertisement for the chili.
Yeah, so I had a very nice conversation with Tracy Purdue-Smith, and as soon as we get through our budget sessions and everything else, I volunteered to meet with her at Chamber of Commerce and basically maybe be like a liaison with the board to get Lyon Township more involved, starting right now for next year with everything from I'll pass out posters. I even suggested, she likes the idea, Linda at Good Times said she would sponsor having pocket-sized calendars for people instead of flyers. They can hang on to them, just like a little foldy card or something. So yeah, so I'm looking forward to meeting with her as soon as time permits, and we can get something even good started now for next year.
That's Roscommon Chamber of Commerce, right?
Yes.
Yeah, the thing I saw was no posters, even at the cross-country ski shop, who is a sponsor. And we never got anything here, and I suspect that we could probably get the turnout even bigger if we got ahead of the game next year. So that'd be great.
I will say the after party at the Silver Dollar was pretty busy. They did have a lot of raffles, and I think that the entire place was full, so that was good.
Was the Cut River Grill involved in the after party or not? Do you know?
That I don't know.
I don't think so.
They had a wine tasting.
Did they?
Yeah.
Okay, I know they were in the chili cook-off, and okay, yeah, you're right, when wine tasting. I thought the ski headquarters had something too involved in there.
I think they had a bonfire, but I don't know what time it was. Who won the chili cook-off?
Number 6, I think it was Cut River.
Really?
Yep.
I had a bet with my grandson on that, but I lost. No, I thought it was really cool. Okay, so next, before we get into old business, would be the approval of the consent agenda. Let me make sure I have my ducks in a row here. Oh, I'm sorry. The board reports would be next. So I have this, there's a typo here, the board reports should be there and not in under the agenda at number 1. That is definitely my mistake. Want to get the board reports out and any questions from the public first before getting into the agenda. So let's move to the board reports right now. If you have yours and you're ready and you want to go first, that'd be great.
All right, I'm gonna start with maintenance, simple one this year, or this month, excuse me. So, I had a complaint at the beginning of the year about pickleball courts needing more. So I contacted, Pro Surface, who did our resurfacing of our tennis court and everything else. They're gonna come in the spring, and they're gonna find out if they can put 4 courts instead of just 2 inside our tennis court to increase the volume. Hopefully we can. If not, we got space in the front of it. Maybe in the future, look about building another one. It's a big sport, took off real fast. We're up and I'm getting ready for all the maintenance on the mowers, oil changes, blades, belts, greasing and everything else, and it started today on them, providing Mother Nature stops and lets me do my other job.
Good luck there.
Yeah. Again, Winterfest was a great hit, Park 27. The committee, they said thanks, they appreciated it, they started it, I think 2 years ago at Park 27. It worked out great, everything's right there side by side for most of the work. So that's all I got for maintenance.
Okay, was that, are we anywhere near estimates for that pickleball court work?
Not yet, I won't know until they come in and see what they can do.
All right, cool.
So as for fire department, fire and EMS, runs to date are 19 runs so far. 15 of them have been EMS runs, 5 are fire calls. Down wire, CO detectors going off, mutual aid structure fire, township coverage. We did assist Lake Township in that big fire they had over there. It ended up being a 12-hour call we were on. We had some problems with 624, which is our tender that we took over there. Ended up getting put out of service in the middle of the fire, 7 hours into the system. One of it is this dash here had broke, and that dash located right here is our stop button and release button for our brakes. So when we go to push it in, the whole dash would go in and get stuck. So we had to replace that and a ball valve on our pressure release for the shutoff for filling the trucks. I broke the handle off on that, so it was stuck open. We had fixed the ball valve that night. I went to Home Depot, picked up 2 of them, put a new one on. I keep a spare in the truck now at all times, because I can change that right on scene without a problem. This part we had to order. This part cost the fire department $120 plus the time to put it in. We did it ourselves instead of sending it out, saved a few $100 on doing it that way. Small stuff like this, we'll try to do more in-house, but stuff that has to be certified will go out and be done that way.
Great. What was the issue with water was hard, or the lake was so shallow it was too frozen to do anything?
Yeah, behind the house, the water is approximately, I think, ankle deep. So if you put something there to suck water up, you're gonna suck all the dirt with it. So they couldn't draw from right there. We had drained Garish's fire department tank, Garish's west building and their main building. Then they went to the canal over by Marquee and started sucking out of the canal there, which is deeper. Water was the hardest part to keep up. We dumped 9,000 gallons of water ourselves before we were put out of service. So there's a lot of water going on.
That was the biggest place I've seen in a long time, too. A lot of cupolas and everything that was
Yes.
built into that.
The worst thing was that the floor of the house had gone before anything else did, so they couldn't go interior. It all had to be fought from outside. So,
Yikes.
pancake breakfast, like I said, like we all discussed, went great. There was approximately 159 people that came through, and that's the same with the chili count, they said. I'd like to thank all the board members that did come and help and did show up. Thank you for that. And all the other personnel, your wife that came and helped out, it was great. We enjoyed. We were there until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 6 to 3. The only other thing I got is I appointed Alan Bedett as our new training officer for the fire department. And what his job will entail is that he in charge of setting up all the training for the fire department and in-house training we do. And he follows, I told him that we follow the same book that the academy uses, so that nobody's out of date on anything. And then, that's it.
Great. Anybody on the board got any questions for JC?
Just want to comment. I thoroughly enjoyed showing up. I just felt bad. There were so many people volunteering for that there was really nothing to do when I got there, and I felt bad. I was like, well, I'll just walk around and talk to a bunch of people. So I think it was great that so many volunteers came out. I think next year, that's why I'm going to work with Tracy so I can feel more integrated into volunteering per se.
I spent a lot of time out in the bay.
Well, if you would have been there later, it was busy.
Oh, yeah, it did. It got busy fast.
I tried to clean a tray and you were like all over it. I was gonna like check you into the wall, but
Well, we do have a pancake breakfast coming up for the fire department Memorial weekend. We're also gonna try our hardest to do on 4th of July weekend, but that's all for the fire department, so
that's not related to the chamber?
No.
Okay.
that's just something that we put on as firefighters.
Wonder if we can advertise through the chamber.
It's possible.
Cool. All right, has anybody in the public got a question for JC Fire Chief?
Hey, JC. I just remembered this because of what you brought up on the issue with getting water.
Mhm.
Are you guys still thinking about putting one out there at the treatment plant, or is that kind of,
I haven't heard anything else of it since the first time you mentioned it to me. I haven't heard
Okay.
from nobody about it,
alright,
so.
I'm assuming you guys would still like to do something
Oh, it'd
like
be
that?
nice to have water there,
Yeah,
you know, but the amount of water. We got 25,000 gallons in our station, plus another 10,000 gallon tank next to us, and I believe another 20,000 gallons at the old fire department too, so. But, yeah, it would be nice.
Okay, thanks, sir. I didn't mention, but all of the reports that we go through are available on the back table for anybody trying to keep that transparency going. Next on the list is a treasurer.
Mine is pretty straightforward, just can't wait till the end of this month. We've done collecting taxes. Got all the millages paid through January. And we did have a couple friends come from Otsego Lake Township on a Saturday and spent the whole day with us, just going through the BS&A training, showing us how this intricate system works, and they were a tremendous help. And they said if we ever need help again, to come back and ask them to come back, and they'd be more than happy to help. Other than that, just working on the budget revenues and expenses, and almost ready, hopefully, to announce some type of GFL deal. Probably a couple of weeks off for that, and then just currently working on the township portion of the state revenue sharing, and then working to pay some back taxes from the last 3 years. So that's about it.
Any board questions? We talk about this stuff all the time. I don't have it. Does anybody in the audience here got any questions for the treasurer Hobbs here? Okay, we will move on.
Well, I got a question. The repayment of the back taxes for 21, 22, and 23, how much was that? Just out of curiosity.
Not much, I think it's somewhere around $800. It's just a few people that claimed full-time, so they're allowed to go back. So there was not many of them. I think the total is like $800 to get the percentage of it, so it wasn't a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, next would be the clerk's report.
Okay, well, we stay busy pretty much every day. Not as busy as the treasurer right now, because he's, I barely see him, and we're just a few feet apart. But it's coming to a slow drizzle now. We had nothing today, no taxes came in. So, yeah, we got finished doing all the 1099s and W-2s. They're all in the mail. They were all out in time before the 31st. We talked to some neighboring townships to get names and numbers of their CPA firms that they currently use, just to see if we could get a handle on some different ones. The state of Michigan tax, well, we're fighting with that a little bit because neither one of us, my deputy or myself, have done it before, but we're getting numbers. The Earned Sick Time webinar through MTA is set for the 21st. The BSA budget webinar is going on. Let's see, we'll know something about that one thing tomorrow. Received and answered about 8 calls a day on the telephone. We've gotten 15 emails a day that are answered. And most people are very pleasant. They like getting the answers on a timely basis. We had discussions on health and pensions, several one-on-ones with the different board members, because any more than that is a violation of the Open Meetings Act. So we met with Clerk Brown and Treasurer Brown from Otsego County, and they had some tips for us, as they did with Kevin. We swore in a bunch of new board members, and I guess we're gonna do a few more this week. Talked to some tonight. Payroll and payables are completed for the month. We met CPA Dan Smith came to the office and tried to give us a few tips. And we had just a new group with Mike and John. I forgot who do they represent, Paul?
I'm gonna defer to Deputy Johnette as to the name of the company. It was 3 letters. It was an unusual.
UHY.
What was that?
UHY.
UHY?
Okay, but
I do not know what it stands for.
Yeah, no, I don't know what it stands for either, but I have just the initials too. Thanks, John. We've reviewed a lot of proposed resolutions. We attended special meetings. We finished all minutes up to date. And all the material that's pertinent to our things are all on file and ready for inspection anytime we need it. As this month's meeting, did we approve last month's minutes yet or not yet?
That's coming up in the
That's
consent
coming,
agenda.
right. Okay. Other than that, we're sailing right along until my clerk had a little issue with her, my deputy clerk had a little issue with her health today. So that's these different protocols we're going through now. So I thank you for not asking me questions tonight, because I won't answer. I don't want to take a chance on infecting anybody. So that concludes my report, sir.
Thank you, Clerk Pern. Very detailed. I can tell by your clerk. Next is trustees. Detmer's name is here first. If you want to go with that, Trustee Detmer, and let us know what you've been up to. Gonna have to grab your mic there.
Mostly I've been doing liquor inspections in the township. That's about the extent of what I've been doing.
Okay, how about Trustee Monet?
Yeah, last month, obviously I attended our work session. I did attend the GLUA board meeting on the 12th at 9 a.m. to discuss the future of GLUA. I'm sure that'll be talked about more this evening. And I did attend the pancake breakfast, if anything, just to show that, hey, I do support you. The biggest thing I've been working on, and this will be coming up in item number 6, is a retention and disposal schedule is required by state law, so we can start addressing all the records that are backlogged in the township. And there are some very specific things in mind, and I have a rough draft this evening that we could put forth and adopt, but we'll get to that in item 6. So that's been a lot of my time.
Great, I'm glad you've been working on that. We got boxes, of stuff. As far as myself, for the supervisor's report, I have to say it's indeed a pleasure to serve the residents of Lyon Township. The job is challenging, but it's fun too, and I work with a great bunch of people. I spent a great deal of time working on board appointments, plans to repurpose the money within GLUA, and budget preliminary discussions. A lot of time on that, and we'll get to that later. I believe there's 4 ordinances that are in the works, and some progress was made on all of them. Overall, not as much was accomplished in this time period as in December, January. But the groundwork to move forward was laid, and I'm going to rely on the video record and the meeting notes that are posted for review, because they're going to be much more in detail as to what was going on a regular basis for those who care to review it all. Once the budget's fleshed out, things will again move quickly. I think by the end of March, things are going to be real busy again. The budget is a drag. It slows everything down. We have to be really paying attention for the next couple of weeks and for the previous 2 weeks. It's got to get done, and we will get it done. There were 5 FOIA requests during this time period. All but 1 were resolved quickly. In April, I will again update the webpage with the questions and answers from the FOIA requests and the board meetings. Questions from the residents in the board meetings dropped considerably since January. I mean, for a while we were going with 8, 10, 12 at a meeting, and it dropped right off to 1 or 2. So I will update that in April and bring it up to speed. I do not see that we have gotten we're not to a point where we can do a frequently asked questions page, but I suspect when we get closer to spring, we might be able to do that. As far as the ordinance officer contacts, there was only 4 requests that involved an ordinance officer, and I am the temporary ordinance officer. 1 was for a civil suit that we cannot get involved with. I had been involved with this person before, and they took somebody to court. At that point, we need to stay away and let the court system do its work. Another was for illegal signposting that was actually in the county road right away, which therefore is not a township issue. And 2 were related to burning. 1 complained about burning and burning leaves, and another requesting a burning permit, which was granted. In looking at things, I don't know that we have an ordinance that bans burning leaves, and I have to look harder at it. I'm not quite sure what's going on there. I know we used to have one that if you had an enclosed area, you could burn things, but I didn't think it included leaves. Maybe it does. As far as a sexton, as acting sexton, I fielded 4 different concerns in this time frame. 1 was to store a deceased loved one's body over winter in the chapel vault room. That whole sentence, I had no idea that happened, nor that we had a chapel vault room. This is a practice, in going through this process, it's a practice that we might consider out of respect for the families, and the fact that the burial options are very limited in the winter. We also talked about wanting to plow the cemetery, at least up to the chapel and the parking lot there during the winter anyway. We're exploring the possibilities of doing that in the future and looking at an ordinance. That'll be later on in the agenda. There was one previously that was either rescinded or repealed, I'm not sure which, but maybe it's something we can do. 2 were notifications of a family member passing and scheduling services in the spring. And 1 was looking to sell a lot back to the township, a burial plot. We need to work on an acceptable price to both the township and the families on that. We have, nothing's going on right now, but in the spring, we need to figure out what's gonna work for both parties. Is there any questions on any of these reports that you would have for me from the board first? And from the public, next. Okay, then we will move on. So that brings us to the approval for the consent agenda. We tried really hard last month to make sure that we had all this material on that table available for the public to be able to take. It had never been done that way before. We intend to do that all the time. Right in the middle of preparing for this today, as Clerk Pern mentioned, our deputy clerk was diagnosed with COVID. And she was right in the middle of producing a lot of the stuff that should be on that table right now in regards to the consent agenda. So I'm gonna tell you what we currently have in the consent agenda for the packets here for the board members, and everything is on that back table. The bills are missing. That's what she was working on right at the moment that we had to go into the protocol. I believe the most recent payroll is 2, along with the check ledger. The previous minutes are all here and on the back table for January 29th, January 15th, and January 8th. So those are now available, and then from this meeting, we'll go on the webpage. There are copies of the current board and department reports as given. Timesheets are missing. So the consent agenda that we would approve includes everything that we could get our hands on, as I just read it off to you. So do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as I just read it, with obviously some things are missing? I would add that we will have to have a special meeting next week. Treasurer Hop's favorite thing to do. In order for the deputy clerk, we'll pick back up there, but we're assuming that she will be gone. And that we'll have to have a special meeting to finish out payroll and a couple other things. And hopefully Clerk Pern is not gonna develop anything that further interferes with that.
Yes, I hope that too.
Yes. So do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as I read it with things missing that we would hopefully correct next week?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, do we have a second?
I was gonna say, Kim, should we just wait until it's final before, and then approve it then?
I suppose we
I
could.
mean, just that way everything's done.
Doesn't bother me that we wait until we have it all collectively together. There's a few things missing.
Yeah, I would just,
We can
I
approve
would
it at a
just-
special meeting too, you're right.
I just think it's better, it's neat, everything's together.
Well, I would say at least to approve the minutes from last month. At least do that.
Okay, and we can change this right in midstream here. We can approve the minutes and the reports that were given. If, that's a suggestion, to approve the minutes and the board reports that were given and wait on the rest of it till a special meeting.
Well, we would just table the consent agenda,
Or table the whole thing, that's,
either way.
well, if we approve the minutes, then we can get them on the webpage.
Correct.
You wanna just think about approving the minutes, period? Sure. All right, well then, do we have a motion after that discussion? Do we have a motion to approve just the meeting minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion on that? Then we'll end the discussion. So we do have a motion to approve the minutes only. With the minutes, I don't think we need a roll call at all.
We don't.
So we can do all those in favor of approving the minutes as we discussed, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the same. Okay, the motion carries. Next is old business. A lot of this is me. The Eagle, we had to re-up certification on the Eagle compost site. Deputy Supervisor Johnette has started working on that with them, and I suspect that the process will go smoothly, and mostly they want some money and they want to come and inspect it. That should be fine. The newsletter is still on hold and has been until we can get into the budget. And we're there right now. Point of sale and the time of transfer septic ordinance is still in a holding pattern. We put it on hold waiting for the state. I'm kind of like, I'm not gonna wait a whole lot longer. If the state comes up with something great, it's probably time for us to make a move. We can discuss that later, though. And the supervisor comments, questions, suggestions, contact request form that is on the webpage faltered for a little while, then it was corrected, and being an interactive form, it is now working fine. I get things periodically from that, and that's the way it should be. So there's no need to fill a paper out in the office, but you can certainly do it that way too. I got 2 of each actually in the last couple of weeks. Okay, that brings us to the new business, which is the actual agenda. I'm going to go through these one at a time just to make sure. I've been told I could probably lump it all together, but I'm going to do them one at a time just to make sure. So for board appointments, we have Steve Reedy, who is willing to serve on the Parks and the Rec Commission and the Planning, or Parks and Rec Committee and the Planning Commission. Most of us know Steve already, and I thanked him already for offering. He did send a resume late today that I did not manage to get my hands on before coming here. He has the experience working with the Parks and Rec as far as the concert agendas, and as you know, he's a real estate agent. And I believe that on both of these committees, his desire to try and improve things around here kind of stands out. You know, not only is he offering to do it, he stays involved. So on appointing Steve Reedy to the Parks and Rec Committee and the Planning Commission, do we have that motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, I would second that.
Second.
Oh, okay, that'll work. Okay, we have the motion. Do we have any discussion on that? Okay, no discussion or the end of discussion. So this may involve money at times, so could we please have a roll call? Mr. Pern?
Sure, trustee Monet,
Yay.
trustee Detmer,
Aye.
clerk Kern, yea, treasurer House,
Yay.
supervisor Bertrand.
Yay. Okay, motion carries. Welcome aboard, Steve. The next board appointment is Roger Tagtmeyer to the Planning Commission. Now, his resume is attached. And I've certainly looked it over. This is a result of us wanting, when we ran for office, wanting to get veterans a voice, a better voice in the township. He is willing to serve on the planning commission. I'll read it quickly. He's been an integral part since '71 of being around here. His wife's family built a home. I'll scan this. He has a background in electrical construction industry. Worked as a journeyman union electrician for 50 years. Wireman, foreman, superintendent, project manager across various sectors, including housing, commercial businesses, high-rises, office buildings, and industrial plants throughout Chicago and the area. He's currently still consulting as an electrical contractor in Chicago. In addition to my professional experience, I'm also a proud veteran of the United States Army, and my service has instilled in me a strong sense of duty, commitment, pride in my country. Lifetime member of the American Legion and the AMVETS, volunteer my time at the AMVETS Lodge. Greatly appreciate the opportunity to be considered for the Planning Commission Board of Lyon Township. So that's Roger's resume. Having read that off, do we have a motion to appoint Roger Tagmeyer to the Planning Commission Board?
I'll make the motion.
Okay. I will second that motion. So we have a motion. Is there any discussion on this?
Yes, there is. I'm curious if that puts us over our numbers, because it was my understanding that Dan Richardson would still be on the planning
I
commission.
can hardly hear you. I don't know
Oh,
if it's the way
sorry.
you're angling.
It was my understanding Dan Richardson would still be on the planning commission, and if that's the case, that would bump our numbers if we appoint Roger.
That's coming up in the agenda. I think we're at 5 right now, including Dan.
No, he is not listed here.
Let me see what I got here. In what I've been tracking down there, Dan was willing to serve and is here now and is willing to serve, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah. I have it on a sheet downstairs. Maybe it's not updated with what you're looking at. When we get, well, we can get there right now. I did not bring all of the other members up here. I was mostly concerned with getting the appointments
Listed,
made.
right?
Okay, yeah, so there's you as a board liaison, Steve Reedy, Ron, Fred Cowper, and Roger Tagmeyer.
And adding Dan, who already volunteered to stay on the
Oh,
planning.
okay, I see what you're
Yeah.
saying. All right.
Thank you.
No, don't think, keep your mic going here. Any, we could do a couple of things, maybe. In the middle of this motion, we could possibly add him as an alternate. We could add him and then further on decide if we're gonna go from 5 to 7. Ron is under the impression, at least well, I've been told, that he is still there. His appointment lasts until, I think, 5/1/25. Fred, Steve, Reedy, you, and Roger would all be new, and Dan has been on. Any suggestions on how to potentially resolve this now, or are we gonna have to go back to the drawing board on it?
Alternate is fine, but I think Dan, being the one that came out from the very get-go after we got elected, I would obviously think that, he gets priority, basically.
No, that's an oversight on my part. And as an alternate, he would participate in meetings anyway if he chooses to come. I don't know if that gives you a vote as an alternate?
No.
Okay. Then going on later in the agenda here, there's a discussion about how many people we might want to have there on it. Would it be acceptable if we made a motion today then to add Roger Tagmeyer as an alternate? And then we may have to revisit this. Not today.
Yeah, as an alternate, definitely.
Okay.
But Dan should get his say because he stuck with it.
Yeah, I certainly didn't mean to exclude him. That was an oversight on me typing this up 45 minutes before the meeting started. Okay, then I can change the motion. All that being said, do we have a motion to appoint Roger Tachtenmeyer as an alternate to the Planning Commission?
I'll make that motion.
I will second it. Okay, we have the motion. Any other discussion on it already or further discussion? Okay, again, it involves some money, so could we please have a roll call vote? Clerk Pern.
Treasurer House,
Yes.
trustee Detmer,
Trustee Detmer, asking for a vote there? Okay,
oh,
sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt you.
I'd like to abstain right now.
Okay,
trustee Monet,
Yay.
supervisor Bertrand,
yay.
clerk Kern. Yeah.
Okay, the motion carries 4 with 1 abstain. And welcome aboard, Roger. Also, Roger's experience also lends towards the Board of Appeals, which he was willing to discuss that too.
Can I say something for a minute?
Sure, absolutely.
The only reason I abstain is I'm just not really sure about the whole alternate kind of a thing. Is it clear that he's not gonna be a voting member, is that correct?
As far as I know, he's not a voting member, but he can attend meetings, and later on in the agenda, we'll discuss what we may do or not do about that.
Well, as long as, right now, he's not as a voting member, then I'll change my vote to yes. But, because I guess it took a while for it to sink in on what it was going, but I can see the value of it, and I think he's a qualified individual. I see a lot of good things in his resume and stuff. I have no doubt that he's a good person and a good fit for the job. It's just whether he could be a voting member or not. That was my big quandary right there.
No problem. We all got questions. Okay. Next is Fred Kalber to the Planning Commission and the Parks and Rec Commission. Fred's resume is here, and I'm not even going to begin to try and read this thing. He has a wealth of experience in Meridian Township, in fire department, incident command, emergency management, ability to lead teams, and this is on the back table. This is a 2-sided resume. I haven't seen one of them in a while. Crisis management, compliance, safety regulations, demonstrating communication, problem-solving skills, and also multi-departmental collaborative effort. We successfully secured funding through grant proposals for traffic light control, emergency vehicle response for 3 counties, as well as securing equipment for the response team in the event of a mass shooting incident. Also secured funding for 6 warning sirens, 4 heart monitors for each ambulance, and 60 sets of firefighting turnout gear. Needless to say, Fred and I have discussed the fact that he has a lot of grant writing experience, and we would like to have grant writing experience on our planning commission. And actually in the Parks and Rec, and he is willing to do both. And I think it's a great fit. He was actually on the short list of potentially could have been the supervisor when Julie resigned the first time. So he's got qualifications for this, and in talking with him, he has a desire to help. He had a desire to serve before, even as a supervisor. So all of that being said, I believe he'd be a great asset. So do we have a motion to appoint Fred Cowper to the Planning Commission and the Parks and Rec?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, do we have a second?
I second it.
Okay, so we have a motion. Is there any discussion about it? Further discussion?
Yes, there's a lot of discussion. I see a lot of gobbledygook on here, but it doesn't say he started in Detroit as a fireman. And
No.
that's what should have been number one. And then he went on to other things. But, no, he will be a nice addition. I welcome him with open arms.
No, he's not from your old firehouse.
No, he was on the east side. He was on the east side, but he had experience.
Okay,
Apologize for that. Clerk.
okay.
Apologize for that.
Any other discussion? Okay, we'll end the discussion. So again, it involves money in some way, shape, and form. So could we please have a roll call vote, Clerk Pern?
Supervisor Bertrand,
Yes.
Treasurer Houghton,
Yes.
Clerk Kern, yes. Trustee Detmer,
Yes.
Trustee Linay.
Yay.
Okay, the motion carries. Welcome aboard, Fred.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, or on the appointments, is the hiring of Bruce Adzigian as a sexton and grounds maintenance and other duties as assigned. There's some background to this. We've been talking about it for over a month. Initially started out looking like a combination of an ordinance officer and a sexton. Turned out that separating the ordinance officer from this might be a best fit. The grounds maintenance would mean taking care of this building site and the maintenance around here. It does not mean do all the work. It means take care of things, cut the grass, keep an eye on things. When things are falling apart, let us know. If we need to spend money on something, I know there are some issues with the building. Somebody who's got an eye for that kind of stuff. He lives on the other side of the cemetery. So under the premise that this is a 12 to 15 hours a week, but a lot of it is going to be laying out what needs to get done to the board so the board can make some decisions. The other half being the sexton, he would be able to dive into that file cabinet in the basement there and make sure that we have somebody keeping up with that stuff for the plot numbers. And other duties as assigned, I believe that he can help out greatly because there's 2 foot of snow with the records retention as far as working inside the building to start. So his resume is attached. He has a lot of abilities, a lot of experience in sales and accounts and maintaining accounts and scheduling. Bachelor's degree in sociology and literature at Eastern, and was a manager for 250 accounts at one point in the business, and a merchandising manager. The sexton job is admittedly, you're going to have to learn what it needs to take to keep up with it, but I certainly think that's achievable, and we have time. It's not like the cemetery is doing a brisk business right now. I did talk to MTA. They don't necessarily supply any training for a sexton, but I talked to Markey, and I believe that you could probably do some job shadowing with whoever's doing a sexton job over there. And whatever avenue you need to take to understand what you need to do is most of the surrounding townships, excuse me, are real helpful. Maybe not Garish right now, but most of the remaining ones are real helpful. So I think we can work all of that out. At $15 an hour, 12 to 15 hours per week. I put a starting date on here at the beginning of the next payroll. At the time I typed this, I wasn't sure when the next payroll starts for the checks. Could certainly figure that out. The first? Okay. let's start with, do we have a motion then to hire Bruce at Zigian as a sexton, grounds maintenance, and other duties as assigned?
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll say,
Okay. Excuse me. We have a motion. Any discussion on it? I would add in the discussion that maybe it's possible to start him in the payroll system sooner than that, potentially, you know, in next week even. We'll have to discuss, I guess, with the clerk's office, whether we can move on it sooner. Bruce, are you willing to move sooner on it, or?
Yes, well, I can come in tomorrow, we can discuss it.
Well, yeah, I don't know about tomorrow. I'm thinking that Monday or Tuesday, when things settle down a little bit, we could probably figure out whether you could start next week as opposed to waiting for the beginning of the pay period. Because there is some literature you need to go through as a, you know, human resources stuff from the township. Part of it was to have a resume. We got that already. Is there any other discussion by any other board members?
yes, I'd like to say that this board owes a great deal of debt to Bruce for running campaigns. Every kind of a meet and greet we had, he was there. The picket lines out front, he helped with. That's great. I think he'll be a great asset to him. But I would ask his indulgence, one thing, let's put off till Monday or Tuesday till you guys meet. Let's get Courtney healthy, then you guys can come all in and get sworn in if you wait till that. No, you're not getting sworn in again. Doggone it, you're sworn in every other week we get you. And thank you for that. But, yeah, I would appreciate that. She'll be well by then, and hopefully I am not diagnosed with anything. So, yes, that's the end of my discussion.
Okay, are there any other comments or discussion from the board members?
Money.
Okay, we'll end the discussion. So again, it's about money. Could we please have a roll call vote, Clerk Byrne?
Clerk Kern, yes. Trustee Detmer,
Yes.
trustee Monet,
Yay.
treasurer Huff,
Yes.
supervisor Bertrand.
Yes. Excuse me. Yes again, and I would add, he lives on the other side of the cemetery, and I'm really liking that idea. Okay, the motion carries, and welcome aboard, Bruce. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is a discussion about finalizing the number of persons on the planning commission. How convenient. So, background story is nothing more than what we just discussed right here. We previously, or I had suggested the possibility of 7 people if we could get a quality crew. Trustee Monet had mentioned that certainly it has to be either 5 or 7, it can't be 6, because then you have an even number as far as voting. We've got no farther than at our work session saying put it on the agenda for a board meeting here. So if anybody's got any discussion or ideas about it, mine are if we can find 7 more smart people in a room, to me is a good idea. But that's me.
My suggestion is 5.
Okay. Any other comments from the other board members?
Yeah, I've given this some thought, obviously. I'm not sure I see the need in a community this size to have 7 people, because I'm also looking at it from a fiscal responsibility perspective, that although it may not be much money, but every dollar saved is a plus to the community. And if you go up to 7, if 5 good people, no matter what side of the spectrum they are, anything can't come to a conclusion or a decision in this side of the community, for me, I don't see how 7 is going to make that much of a difference in having to pay them. So that's where I stand.
I agree with you. My only, my point was vigorously trying to find people who have experience with writing grants. If we can get people on there with experience on writing grants, I think that's a good thing. And if that puts us at 7, again, my opinion would be that's a good thing. Certainly listening to your other input here. We don't, keeping it at 5, we don't have to do anything, because we're already there.
I'd also like to keep it at 5.
Okay. Well, it would seem that by affirmation alone, keeping it at 5 is where I would like to go. I would only add that going down the road, if qualified people come back around when it's not 2 feet of snow, that we maybe revisit it, but I'm fine with it the way it is right at this moment. So there's no motion, there's no action that needs to happen. If we were to change it, we would have had to make that motion. Okay. The next thing on the agenda is an update and discussion on returning a cemetery ordinance, and this has to do with the trying to help people out with the storage of their loved ones in a vault room that is in the chapel for that purpose. When I was working on this, a person called and wanted to do it. It was all news to me. I tried to make it happen and ran into a snag with our legal firm and all the potential liabilities. And that seemed to be a never-ending story. And also the previous board either rescinded or repealed the ordinance that allowed that to happen. And there was, take your pick on the rumors as to what went wrong in that situation. But at the same time, when I was trying to help these people out, if your loved one passes and you store the body and you have to do it over winter, you're talking $5,000 to a funeral home. Or possibly some kind of deal that happens in Traverse City where you can buy a vault. It occurred to me that maybe we can do better than that. If we can nail down the liability issues, we could offer that we could offer to create an ordinance to do this again and charge a fee as in possibly $800 or $1,000 in regards to giving them an option that is a lot cheaper than they would get forced into, because the cemetery is closed in the winter as far as digging. That was my thoughts on it. Deputy Supervisor Johnette looked at the old ordinance. I did not bring it here because it was mostly about a general discussion of what you guys as board members think about this possibility. So I'll open it up to you guys.
Me, myself, I don't want any part of this. That's just my opinion. I don't know anything about this stuff, and I'll leave this one up to you guys to decide.
The only thing I'd have to say about it, just reiterating what I said before, is that I don't see a problem with it as long as, first and foremost, the respect is given to the deceased person. First and foremost, I want to make sure liability insurance is intact and will cover whatever. But I also want, which didn't see in the last resolution, that there has to be, for me, to go along with something like this, that I don't care what the cost, because it's out of respect for a deceased person, that the township will step up and make sure that body's respectfully taken care of. No matter what we have to do legally or otherwise, I just don't like the idea of leaving it open-ended. If somebody doesn't come back and take care of their loved one, then what? And I want to make sure that the township takes care of it, and we will deal with the legal issues and the money after the fact. If it has that built in for the respect, once again, for that individual, I'm okay.
Are there any other board comments?
I'd also like to look into health and safety kind of conditions. So I'm not opposed to it. I'd like to help our township people out as much as possible. But I'd like to see more nuts and bolts about storage, embalming, and those kind of things where we're not putting people who are working in the cemetery in jeopardy. So it would have to be a pretty well-written ordinance with those kind of things in it for me to be in favor of it.
Yeah, Yes, I do think more discussion is necessary on this, but I agree with Timothy, in the one respect, respect is most important. Respect for the past and the people that are wanting to go to do these things, great, we'll do anything, but a little bit of money, this isn't, we're not talking about a fortune here, so I don't think the money really enters into it, but I think we need more discussion among ourselves and come up with the right decision.
I would agree with all of that. I didn't bring the details, but we had already explored the options, and the funeral home director had explained to me, you can end up with a certificate of a proper embalming. There's the legality issues had to do with acts of nature. Tree falls on the building, who's responsible for what, as Mr. Monet was saying. But it could be worked out, so short of going through the details, if there's support to just kind of generally look into it some more, we can do that. It sounds like by affirmation, except for Treasurer Hops, that we could at least look into it and maybe bring it back around as an actual ordinance that we're looking at, and get a price from the legal firm on what it would take to satisfy their needs in protecting us. And I get it. There's a lot of things that could potentially go wrong if you weren't ahead of the game. Okay, we'll leave that where it is and move on to the next agenda item. Boy, this is going slow. Okay, an update on the chicken ordinance. A very similar situation. We're not going to make a move on this. I do have a chicken ordinance. Trustee Detmer was working with one of the residents. Deputy Supervisor Johnata's working on this. Again, we're looking at some details. And again, if we're willing to pursue this, because this all started from people asking me about it. And the fact that it's on the news, but we're talking about having a small number of chickens in an enclosed cage, not running free in a residential area. And I don't want to spend the time going through all of this. I guess it would suffice to know that if you guys supported the idea of looking into it further, I would then pass copies of this ordinance out that we're currently looking at, changes that might happen, and then if I'm not mistaken, this is a zoning issue, right?
Yes, thank you. How?
Well, we'll at least treat it as one anyway, right?
Under state law, ordinances are passed and resolutions under Act 246, 1945 for the health and welfare of people have to be uniform in nature as stated by state statute. When an ordinance, in this case, specifically mentions R1 residential areas, you are exclusively saying an area. That is zoning. That's what zoning by definition means. You are zoning areas that are allowable to use of their property. Because it would not be uniform because it doesn't encompass the entire township.
So what would be the next steps then for that?
So I have a number of problems when we get to this.
Well, my thought was, well, now we got a planning commission, you need the planning commission to make the zoning change, if that was a proposal, and then plus, don't we need to set the dates for the planning
Yeah.
commission?
So first and foremost, if I may.
You go right
Okay.
ahead, sir.
There's a couple different ways this can be approached. First of all, a new ordinance, this could not be titled number 35. Just can't be. There's already one passed by the last board, or previous boards were not allowed to do that. We would have to either repeal ordinance 35 in full and then create an by ordinance, and then we would have to create a new ordinance of our own choosing. Or we would do something simpler that would be pass a board resolution by majority vote to amend ordinance 35. Ordinance 35 stays intact with the additions added. And that would only happen after we as a board put together the amendments. That gets tossed to the planning commission for review, and from there it would go back to the board based on their recommendation. And then from there, Formality or not, it's been confirmed to me again by the County Board of Commissioners. It is zoning. It has to go to the Roscommon County Board of Commissioners for review. A lot of boards don't do this. It's in the Zoning Enabling Act, Act 110 of 2006. I'm going by the book. Formality or not, they must have a chance to review it because it's zoning, because state law dictates in 110 that all zoning or amendments to zoning must go through the County Planning Commission. In 2022, Roscommon dissolved their Planning Commission. Now they have a board representative to take on the role of the review process, and that is state statute. So there's the process. Oh, and a hearing if necessary.
So we can just take that as written as an amendment then, to 35.
The changes? No, you would only amend, we have to pass a resolution for the changes, for the amended changes, and then the resolution, and then the entire resolution would be written as such after it goes to the Planning Commission for review and their recommendation back to the board.
Let me know what I need to do.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. You're the liaison on the planning commission, so it goes through them, so whatever you think.
there's our
is,
chairperson right there.
That's, hasn't been voted.
Hasn't- Well, you think I'm gonna micromanage it? You guys come up with your own chair. That's not anything that I would even be involved in deciding. Okay, any other discussion from other board members on, by affirmation, it is seeming to me that we can move forward and keep pursuing this unless somebody has a definite no or a different idea.
No, I do not have a no, but I have one more thing that I'd like to address, if I may.
Go ahead.
I'm all in favor of allowing a reasonable number. I'm not sure what that number will be right now, but for the sake of argument, and probably some are not gonna like me, I do have to bring it up. I would like to get some information. I've been doing my own research for days now. I know it wouldn't be much, but we have talked about a lot of nutrient loading for the last 4 or 5 years. And I do know that, like, you know, let's say this is from Oregon State University, Michigan State, and other places, so that like one hen chicken will produce 130 pounds of manure a year, where a lot of the nitrogen they produce will get broken down and converted to ammonia and such. Now, I don't have a problem with that. I would just like to know, she's shaking her head no. That's okay. I would just like to know, well, I mean,
I'm sorry,
It's-
but that's like an incredible amount of waste that, the packet that you
Yeah.
have, that I put together, actually has information
Sure.
on environmental waste from chickens,
mhm,
and it's really basically compost,
yeah.
so.
But they do produce nitrogen, phosphates, and other things,
It
and
has
if we're gonna
no-
allow chickens on the lakefront, if they're 10 feet from the water, then I think it's something, at the very
Well,
least,
the information that I have given
Yeah.
to him also talks about water quality in the area. All of these, I mean, he's got like a ton of information on
Yeah.
all of that. So,
oh, I'm more than willing to look at this, but I'm type, I need 5 opinions, not just one.
Right.
If I'm looking, so I appreciate it, I
Well,
wanna
I mean,
read
I've
all of that,
gathered a lot of information to give to him on.
and that's
this.
perfect. And like I said, I'm not against this, I just wanna look at it, I think it's worth looking at.
I think it is a good endeavor for those who are interested to look further at all these aspects.
So what about dogs? If chicken produces that much, what about dogs?
Well, I pick up my chicken
Now,
waste.
I don't know about
There's
that.
other people that have chickens, they pick it up. And in the ordinance, it says that they will clean up and remove the waste, so.
All right, I don't want to get into a crappy subject here, but we got to move on. I don't want to, well, go ahead, Steve, wrap it up.
I'd just like to, you know, we've got a draft of the ordinance, and it's not a new ordinance, it's not to replace the old one, it's an amended ordinance. And I think it's well thought out, I think it's well written, and I think it should move on to the next step.
Well said. I think we can move on to the next step. I think the people who are working on this are already in touch with each other. Mr. Monet, have you been talking with them about this on a regular basis as far as the ordinance?
I have not received any information from anyone.
All right, obviously you need to get in the loop there, or be put in the loop somehow.
Jeanette and I spoke.
I think it was emailed to you.
Kathy can get you the information she's got. Oh, I definitely, yeah, yep.
So, basically, we have a chicken shit today? Is that what this is?
Ain't no chicken shit.
I have people wanting to buy it from you for their gardens, so.
No, I just, we gotta move. If we move, these things can come up, and they're all great points. We can't do much about it tonight, other than say, yeah, let's talk about that.
And there's municipalities all over the state that are adopting them, all over the country, actually. So Traverse City has one, East Lansing has one. There's one over by Grand Rapids. So there's a lot of them out there, so.
There's a congressman in Michigan trying to get a statewide law done now.
I'll put it on my list right next to the statewide septic ordinance. We'll see if they can pull it off, they can do anything. Okay, we're gonna, I believe by affirmation, we will move forward and the parties involved will talk more and we'll get closer to answers and a final decision on this. Okay, again, number 6, updates on the records retention schedule. Background on that is we have a records room that's in disarray. I had asked Trustee Monet to do some background looking on what can go and what can't go and how it needs to be disposed of. He's got some information together. Clerk Pern and Trustee Monet have already had some discussions on this. Our new hire, Bruce, should be able to help out for some time, at least as far as identifying what's in there. Some of it you can tell what it is, some of it, who knows what's in those boxes. We got to get rid of it in order to move more pertinent, current records in there.
We do have a lot of stuff to go through, but we have way more important and pressing issues right now to deal with. We will certainly use all the help we can get. I've got, Timothy has offered to help. I'm sure we can get Steve one way or another. I've got the deputy and the treasurer, both have offered to help at least with their stuff. And, yeah, I'll certainly use Bruce if we get a chance. But like I said, we got some important issues to deal with probably this next month and a half. After that, we will tackle that, and we'll tackle it head on. And we've got some feedback already from different people, how many years we have to go back to keep the things. And I think the Browns were one of the people that said most of the things have to be kept 8 years in one day. So if we can go back further than that, great, to start.
All right, I know Trustee Monet has a rough draft of some stuff. To me personally, I would help. I've already offered to help many times. To me, we need the direction. What can we get rid of? Then we can identify it, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the clerk identifying it, but it needs to happen underneath the auspices of the clerk. But we can talk more about that. But Trustee Monet, I know you have some material here today.
All right, so, once again, all about procedure. Michigan law requires that any disposal and or retention schedules provided by a township must be approved by the Department of Management and Budget, the State Archives Office, and the state administrative offices. We can't touch those records until we approve. So I've gone back 4 years, as far as I can go back, and checked every single resolution ever passed by prior boards, and I cannot find a retention and disposal schedule. So Clerk Pern had stated that, a lot of places do, 8 years in one day. I don't like it. I think it's messy, because to do that, you then have to put together your disposal and retention schedule. You have to submit it to the state of Michigan, and it has to go through all the approval departments before we even get notification that we are allowed to dispose or retain stuff. I think a better play, and this was just an example today that even Michigan Township Association recognizes, it's General Schedule 10, Michigan Township Record Retention, updated in 2014. And what it is, and these can get very, very lengthy. This is a generalized, Schedule 10 is building department, zoning, and other areas. Within that, they describe everything from clerk's office, elections department, fire department, human resources. And they give very, very specific times and dates to retain or dispose of something. It may be total when it's done 50, 60 pages long, but I mean, it pretty much covers everything. Something that is not covered could be disposed of in accordance with state law. And it's all coded. PER means you have to keep it permanently. Active +3 means you have to keep the active record until such a time 3 years later. There is the date of, that you write up the contract plus 7 years. So if we move forward, we would have to, at any level, we can't touch those records until we adopt a resolution moving forward for a retention and disposal schedule. And then we must record everything that we dispose of. And for me, it's the right way to do it, because they already have it listed for the state. We don't have to make up our own. And even if they did go with just 8 years and then you can get rid of it, I would never touch anything because it wasn't approved by the state until we get approval from the state for that. So that's all I have.
So that's a pretty good backup.
Yeah.
So we're making progress.
Making progress.
All right, we're getting closer. I'm okay with all of that as long as we can start figuring out. It appeared to me when I'm in there looking that it's probably been 7 or 8 years since anybody went through it, but whoever did it previous to that knew what they were doing. There was things marked down there that, you know, by this date it can go, and it appears to have fallen apart completely in the last 6 years. If you have a retention schedule, if you can get anything, even if it's, you know, when you go down there, it's like building inspector, assessor, even, you know, pick something like building inspector, you know, what's the deal on that stuff? You know, if we get a starting point, yeah. If we have some kind of a starting point, then I think all of us in spare time or as designated could help out trying to at least sort and make some progress on it. That's really all I'm looking for. Any other comments from the board members on it? It is something we kind of need to do. It's
As long as it's not touched until we pass a resolution to adopt the schedule.
well, touching it and looking at it is different than
No, I
throwing
meant,
it out the
I meant,
window.
I meant disposing of it properly.
Yeah, okay. Any member or any other board members got a comment on this? Okay, we will move it forward with the assumption that more discussion will happen between the parties who are involved. I'm certainly willing to help. I see that our assessor moved some boxes out of the office that are slated to go down there. That's great. We have some room to just stack stuff until we can figure out where it's going. But, okay, I'm liking that. Next thing on the agenda is an update on the AMVETS lawsuit. The background on this, for those that don't know, I'll try and keep it brief. It's been going on for about 3 years. The AMVETS Lodge was put in foreclosure by Lyon Township for not paying back taxes, and the AMVETS Lodge has always claimed that they did not have to and they were tax-free. At this point in time, I don't particularly care about who said what to who, when, where, and how over the last 3 years. Our law firm came on, said, you got this thing hanging out there, and let's get it done. So it went to the tax tribunal. Our attorneys got into some dispute with the AMVET attorneys, and they asked us as a board, you know, we think we know what we can do here, and we can, you know, it's not going to be what the AMVETS wants in regards to everything they were demanding. And we as a board agreed to, okay, we will follow our legal team's advice. It went to the tax tribunal, and there was further discussion between both parties, and then it got settled. So I got a notification from the attorney that said the cases got settled based on your previous board decision. I can sign it right now. And I answered him and said, yeah, go ahead and sign it. We're in agreement that we're going to do what you are suggesting to do. The outcome of it is that Bottom line is the AMVETS is tax-free. No taxes are owed for those 3 years, so what appeared to be where they may be, we're on the edge of foreclosure for $260,000. Errors were made. They are tax-free, as ruling by the judge. There is some money that we have to probably pay back to the county. Again, I don't particularly care. This has been going on so long and it's so divisive, it just needs to be over. We paid a ton of money in legal fees prior to us taking office. They paid a ton of money. Two sides scrapping back and forth. I am personally glad it is over. So making the public aware now, because at a previous meeting, I think someone had said something about, can't you give us details? And we couldn't, because we only agreed to follow their advice. So that the ruling is done, it's a done deal. Is there any discussion from the board members on this?
Well, you might as well bring up what we are gonna have to pay.
Well, let me start at the top, because I guess it's full disclosure. We're into this thing. The township is into this thing at about $24,000, just in legal fees. And that does not count the fee that our firm now is going to charge us to close this case and get it out of our hair. AMVETS was in about the same, 24,000. We now owe the county, because of the way the taxes were done, isn't it 15,000, 14,000 some dollars?
Just over 14,000, yes.
So if you add the money in the legal fees and what we are gonna have to pay as a fine, this whole thing is like a financial tragedy. You know, we gotta do what we gotta do. I'm just glad it is over. I do not believe in my heart that any of this needed to persist for as long as it did. Our firm basically said this was a mistake from the get-go. And the tax tribunal supported that. Is there any other comments from the board on it?
Well, I think I do have a comment here. I wish that the legal team had let us know there could be some feedback on us, that there would be a kind of a penalty or something to pay. Not their fee, not the legal fee, but this extra fee, this 14 to 15,000 that we owe the county. I wish that we had heard at some time this was a possibility.
That would have been nice. In the end of this saga, it is what it is. There were, at one point, they were looking for us to pay their legal fees too. There might have even been some justification for that. I think the whole thing between the AMVETS and us as a township got dropped, which was a good thing, got settled. The fallout on owing the county is fallout. I wish I'd have known that too, but if I'd have brought it to the board, I don't think we could have said, oh, well, then don't do anything about it. And just keep running the bill up forever. Good point, though. Any other board discussion on that? Okay, it is what it is. So moving on to GLUA. The background on this is, as you all know, I've been pursuing trying to get GLUA repurposed for being able to spend the money in the $1 million grant from the EPA for other purposes besides the sewer. Got information from the EPA that could be done. Got information from the EPA that they had already, there had been discussions with the liaisons for the legislative offices to let them know, how the EPA was looking at it, that this could be done. Basically repurposing GLUA to move away from spending any money in pursuit of a sewer and moving it into, let me make sure I got that right. change the appropriations language, e.g. instead of a sewer system project, GLUA could request the funding go towards a drinking water project, stormwater management project, or, and these is all quotes, a number of other things. At that point, you know, we're looking at the budget and I'm sniffing money. So I chased it down a little bit farther and got to the point where I suggested to the GLUA board that we move in that direction. The GLUA board voted 4-1 to not support that and go with Trustee Monet can fill you in on this, and also Brian, to go with a resolution to throw it back to the townships to dissolve GLUA. And there's some other things that they can fill you in on that too. And while this was going on, I was trying to nail down from our legal firm, what's the deal with this? What is the potential for doing this? The EPA says you can do it. Everybody else was saying it is illegal and you cannot do it. So I finally, you know, the timing was that last night I got the email back from the law firm, and it basically stated that all of those purposes could be used. Another contention, a point of contention was it could not be done without changing the articles of incorporation, and it could not be done the way the articles were currently written. The law firm says that all of that can happen. We could repurpose it and do all those things. We don't have to amend the articles of incorporation, but if we wanted to, we certainly could. So I got that, and I started passing it around and sent it everywhere I could, because tomorrow morning, while this is all going on, Harris Township proclaimed a special meeting for tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock to pull the plug, period, on GLUA. So I spent most of the day spreading this information around so people could be aware that the opinions that say it cannot be done, there's legal backing from our law firm that says, yeah, you can do that. Certainly there's disagreements, but the bottom line is it's a possibility. This is $1 million we're talking about here. That would go a long way towards, one of the comments I got today was, you know, what about the people you asked on the lake to do septic inspections? What if 50% of the inspection was paid for out of this $1 million? I said, they'll be lining up to get them done. So there's all of that. So we're sitting here today, and I would invite Trustee Monet is another GLUA board rep, as is Brian Cook. So I would invite them both to also speak their piece, because tomorrow morning that meeting will happen. And I personally am going to still be saying that we can still work together as GLUA and repurpose that money for the good of the lake. So that is where I'm at on it right now today. So Trustee Monet or anybody else who wants to speak, but I'm sure you have a lot to say on it too.
Of course. Wow, where to even start? Well, first I want to go on the record as saying that this notification from our legal, I find it to be very disrespectful that this board was not given this information before it was posted publicly. I think it's disrespectful to the process, and I think it's disrespectful to this board. That's number one. Number two, I have never ever stated, as it had been suggested at other meetings, that I wanted a new authority. I have never said that. What I was trying to explain in the past was that, per my conversations with the EPA, that the money could be vaulted, leave it alone, it is safe, it is not going anywhere, there's not a sunset date, until such a time, per Andrew Tracy, Grant Administrator for the EPA, his suggestion, until such a time that there could be a project on the table with something to do with this money down the road. Sounds reasonable. Can't be touched, you can't spend a dime of it, it's just there. Also, I am in conflict with Supervisor Bertrand. My conversations with the EPA are very different, that they say that you can repurpose the money and you can use it for other things. Nowhere does it say that you can repurpose GLUA. The guiding act of Act 233 of 1955 that formed GLUA, I think it's rock solid. I'm sick and tired of hearing, well, the laws are vague, so we'll just tweak it and do whatever we want. I don't believe that's how it should work. I just don't. I understand it's $1 million, but at the end of the day, nowhere did the EPA ever say that we can check road end runoff. We can use the money for green belts. We can use it for septic systems. That's not what they said. And Mr. Bertrand, or Supervisor Bertrand, even stated at the GLUA meeting what they stated, and it had none of that verbiage in there. So I don't know what's gonna happen tomorrow. After all these years, I think if there were a play to try to repurpose the money, not GLUA, not gonna happen. I think vaulting it, I just don't understand why that is so difficult for some to understand. They've made it very, very clear. I mean, I have numerous emails from the EPA. The money will not be touched. It'll just stay in the vault, his words, until such a time that GLUA figures out what they can do. Now, there was another point, and the only reason I mentioned this at the GLUA board meeting because I wanted to make sure the EPA had all the information. You know, at this point, if it's all about helping the lake, I don't care who owns the lands. I don't care what township it is. I think it's silly to be like Garish lands, Lyon lands. The lake is the lake. So I explained to Mr. Tracy that we have a perfectly functioning Camp Cornelia system. And he was very, very enthusiastic that if the money needed to be allocated to the Higgins Lake Utility Authority, that is not a problem. GLUA stays intact. The money gets transferred to work with GLUA and HLU together on future projects. If GLUA, in his emails to me, if GLUA was not deemed necessary after the fact, GLUA could be dissolved at that time with still not hurting the money because it's in the proposed realm, if you will, of what the money would be spent for. Yeah, so I think it's time though that we as a board as well, and the other gentlemen as well on this board, I don't know how much information they've received and what they're privy to, but it is time for all of us to step and make a decision. And I don't believe trying to tweak state law is the way to do it.
Thanks, sir. Should be, I don't know if it's on or not.
No, it's not on yet. There we go. All right. I think myself and Timothy are pretty much on the same page. Sorry again, Brian Cook, Lyon Township. I'm also a member of the GLUA board. I'm also a member of the HLUA board. Public Act 233 is pretty clear on what it's for and what you can use Public Act 233 for. Unfortunately, private septic systems are not part of that. So to try and repurpose GLUA into anything to do with private septic systems is not going to happen. It's not part of the Public Act. Now, I seconded the motion at the GLUA meeting for the resolution. Let me be very clear what that was. It's a recommendation to both township boards to dissolve GLUA because the purpose for GLUA to exist no longer exists. There's no sewer. GLUA's purpose no longer exists. The GLUA board is asking the townships to dissolve it because there's no point in it existing any longer. If I remember correctly from the meeting, the money is going to stay there. If GLUA is dissolved tomorrow, that money's going nowhere. I believe I had heard a date of September of 2026 is the earliest that someone at the government could take that money back and put it somewhere else. It's $1 million grant for GLUA. Garish Township is about 3/4 of that. Lyon Township is about 1/4. We're talking about $250,000 for Lyon Township, not $1 million. I think there's things that $1 million could be used for and probably should be used for around here. I would like to see it go towards something that would benefit everyone around the lake equally and not just a small number of people. My opinion is GLUA needs to cease to exist at this point, and then look at what to do with that money. One thing that I had not heard before that Timothy brought up was possibly sending it over to the HLUA for something. I'm not opposed to that, and the HLUA is not opposed to working with other parties to figure out something to do, but I think that's a process that's gonna take a while to work through. The only thing and this is something I've been thinking about. What would that $1 million do for this lake? And what is needed right now today? What financial need is there right now today for this lake? And there is one. And that's the dam. That thing needs to get fixed. And that's gonna cost some money. I don't know if this money could be repurposed into that, but I think we should look at that, because that is something that will benefit everyone. And that is a need today. If we do nothing with septic sewers for 5 years, the water quality of this lake isn't gonna change. It's improved in the last 25 years. It's not headed down, it's headed better. I asked this board to please make a motion tonight to either dissolve GLUA or to continue it. But I think we need to, as a township board, make a decision tonight so that we can either move forward, we can stop, we can figure out what we're gonna do. Because right now, it's just too many circles being run around. If you guys got any questions, I'm more than willing to answer any questions you guys have.
So I got one. This is going around and around and around. First I hear GLUA, we have to dissolve GLUA. And we can't use the money anywhere else, but maybe we can. That's just what Paul said. Now you guys say, no, it can't be repurposed for anything else, but now you're saying it can be. So I am so confused, and as far as the townships go, that $1 million is a 50-50 split. It's not 3/4 and 1/4. So, I mean, and you guys want to dissolve this tonight with, I mean, the questions I have are, I mean, abundant. I mean, I'm hearing different stories every week, it seems like, so you're not gonna get anything from me tonight. I mean, you know, now it's gonna go on HLULA or whatever.
Let me be clear, I'm not saying
All right, we're not
to
gonna get
dissolve
into a
it.
back and forth.
Right.
No, I mean, everybody's got their points.
Yeah.
I would read one thing from the attorneys. PA 233 defines sewage disposal system to include all inceptors, storm sewer, sanitary, combined sanitary, sewage treatment, and underlined here is all other plants, works, instrumentals, and properties used or useful in connection with the collection, treatment, or disposal of sewage or industrial waste. This means that any system that is used or useful in connection with the collection, treatment, or disposal of sewage or industrial waste qualifies as a sewage disposal system under the Act. This definition is very broad and can include anything from a public sewer system to individual septic systems. So, and I'm not disputing, I'm saying there are opinions were everywhere. I got fed up with the opinions. I said, give me the legal angle, and give me the EPA angle. The EPA angle, Timothy is right. Some of it didn't fit, but some of it does. Personally, I don't think that the Higgins Lake Utility Authority has got anything to do with this. This is a GLUA issue, okay? The township boards can decide it as a GLUA issue. Me personally, I'm going to do what the legal team is suggesting it can do to to benefit the water quality in the lake. Just that. When you guys brought up the issue of Higgins Lake Utility Authority at the GLUA meeting, that's the first time I heard of that, and maybe that's a great idea. But I certainly myself will not personally support moving that money out of GLUA into the Higgins Lake Utility Authority. I don't know what the purpose would be if it turns out that that happens, fine. I'm trying to make that money be applied lake-wide, and I believe that there's firm backing legally, and I know that the backing from the EPA spelled out exactly that we could do it for any other purposes. So we have differences of opinion, I get it. And that's why I asked for the legal opinion, because we're all friends, you know, but I can't. A couple of weeks ago, I just said, everybody tells me everything under the sun. This is what I'm going by, right here. And I'm going by the fact that the GLUA money, if it could be used for the lake, is a good idea to me. So,
I just want to say one thing on the HLUA. The first time I heard that brought up in this conversation was tonight by Timothy.
It was just an example to Andrew Tracy.
Correct.
Showing that there.
And I'm just letting you know that
it
there's
was brought up
nothing.
in the GLUA meeting. You brought it up in the GLUA.
Oh, I don't remember
You were
that.
sitting right next to it.
Yes, but I don't remember him bringing HLUA up. All I'm saying is there's no plans, HLUA doesn't have anything to do with this. But if they wanted to repurpose it, there was some need and there was something we could do, that's all I'm saying is an option. I'm not saying what to do or anything else with it, just to
My
be clear.
example to him was nothing more than if GLUA somehow gets dissolved, what were the ramifications for that money before and after? And the only reason I even mentioned HLUA to him is because it is a functioning system. They're not going anywhere. GLUA could be gone tomorrow. So it was just the idea of if something were to happen or otherwise. And that, yeah, so that's all. It wasn't like, oh, let's give money to HLUA. What it wasn't for was not for that.
No, no. Does anybody else got any questions? Thank you.
All right, any other board comments?
Yeah, I don't have any questions, but I do have things to say along the line of Kevin. I'm so confused. I've heard at least 6 different ways that since we started campaigning as a team for this board, way back, we started talking about GLUA, and it was a bad thing, and it was had to be resolved. Then there was the possibility of $1 million. Then the $1 million grant was in. Can we use some of that money? Then the million became $4 million. And I'm thinking, holy mackerel, my eyebrows are going up. What can we do here? This is a lot of money to throw away. So I listened to both sides, and then finally, we get an answer, a legal answer from the law firm that we've hired, and they say one thing, and we still have a difference of opinion. So for any possibility that Brian brought up to have a motion tonight and pass something one way or another, impossible, not possible in every effort. As a board member, that's what I'm talking about. Go ahead, Tim.
Yes, thank you. I'd also like to say that this is an opinion from our township attorney. I get it. But we also have to remember, GLUA is also made up of Garish. And obviously, they have their own opinion. And their opinion would be that they're going to follow state statute as dictated, as presented. And this is why I'm assuming they're going to go through with the resolution, because if their purpose under Act 233 no longer exists, then we must remember GLUA has their own law firm. And where are they going to stand? So yes, we may have an opinion from a law firm that works for this township, which I wholeheartedly disagree with. I believe everyone knows me, I'm a constitutionalist. Until they're challenged, rules and laws are in place. There's nothing in this law that says, let's go test septics, let's build green belts, let's do this. It's not right. I think it's disingenuous to the people, and it's just another example of, well, if the laws are vague, doesn't matter what it is, we'll just do it. And I don't like it.
Got it, man. Ain't the first disagreement we've had. I would say that it's funny because this whole thing is coming down to our attorney for Bachmann-Thal has been representing the Michigan Township Association for over 40 years, since its inception. They represent over 100 different townships and counties, specifically municipal law. That's all they do. The attorney for Garish Township is actually Farhay Schultz, who is almost like the northern Michigan version of that. But both firms, and our firm has said the same thing to us, they don't set policy. They're going to tell you what they think you can do, what is legal. And then you can say, well, we're not going to do that. We're going to try and do something else. And they will fight tooth and nail. You hired them, they're on the payroll to do that, they'll fight your case, even if they didn't think you should do that. Yes, there's a difference of opinion. It's probably don't need to say anything anymore. Yeah, I don't think there's going to be any resolution tonight. Part of my intention is that Garish will have to make a decision whether they pull the plug or not. I believe that as a township board, we're still in the business of trying to utilize that money for the benefit of the lake. There are differences, of course. I don't think we're in a position where we want to pull the plug first, at least not right now. Maybe we are, but we're not going to settle that tonight, I don't think.
I have one final closing comment.
Sure, go ahead.
There seems to be, during the discussions, and I've heard this before, this money doesn't belong to the townships at all. It belongs to GLUA. Now, I know GLUA was formed because of the townships, but the idea that the townships get to use this money, I don't even know where that came from, because Jack Bergman's office with Colin Gwillem has made it very clear to me, this money's not for the township. It is GLUA's money to do with, not the township.
So if that's true and glue is dissolved, then the money goes back.
As it was explained to me, it took an act of Congress to get the money. Bergman's office, and in conjunction with Andrew Tracy, would work on getting Congress to repeal the money and take it back. That's how it works.
So it's gonna go back then if glue is dissolved.
No.
Not for a year and a half.
Well, no, they can start proceedings now, he said.
Let me throw something out there for you.
Yep.
Well, I've had discussions with Trustee Osling over there, who's a fine man and a very smart man. We've already came to loggerheads on the fact that, in his opinion, when you start the Health of Higgins Lake Committee, the intention would have potentially been to start doing more studies, do consecutive studies, follow the EPA determinations on how you get water quality tests. That's not what they're going to do. They're going to do some tests and proclaim that any level of nitrates in well water or lake water is a danger to your health. I will not be surprised if within a year and a half, they are circling right back into bringing a different version of a sewer. My personal fear is if this money is still floating around out there, it's just another way to bring it back into a sewer project. If we can use it, we can use it. If we can't use it and they pull the plug, pull the plug. If it doesn't look like it's a good idea for us to continue, we can pull the plug. I am not in any way putting it in a vault. I get if there was some kind of a guarantee in writing that it does not end up going. I think you had mentioned it could go to an existing organization. Is that what?
Only with approval, written approval
Right.
from the EPA.
So what stops a different organization from creating itself in Garish to then qualify to have that money moved to?
It can, it doesn't work that way.
Okay,
It's
I
designated
understand
for
your
GLUA.
opinion.
Now, we have to, what they would first do is, like Gwillem told me, Mr. Gwillem, is that they would basically put a notification, if you want to call it that, to the House Appropriations Committee. They would start the process to pull the money back. That doesn't mean no one else gets to touch it. That is a huge misconception. Garish can't just magically create the Garish Utility Authority and get that money. It does not work that way.
I'm not saying that they would create that. I'm saying that the money sitting out there makes me a little bit more observant and want even more legal opinions on what could actually happen to it and get past, again, the opinions. We differ on a lot of things, but in my position as a supervisor about a month ago, I can't operate on that. I can't make $1 million decisions on opinions. This is a legal firm's paper and document on the subject. I'll stand on that, and if we crash and burn, we crash and burn. They're a hell of a lot smarter than I am, and as far as I'm concerned, they're a hell of a lot smarter about municipal law than any of us that are giving opinions on this. So I guess we'll find out. All right, is there any other discussion from any of the board members? Okay, we'll put that to bed and see what tomorrow brings. Next, number 9 is a motion to continue with Sam Bedoyan Jr. as the Lyon Blue Board rep. The background on that is that Brian Cook graciously agreed to do it in the interim when Sam had some conflicts of interest that were related to health. I talked to Sam since, and he said he would be honored to again serve. We as a board basically appointed Brian until today. So we as a board need to make a decision or get some opinions here as to whether we want to have Sam continue and treat it as a temporary appointment as it was intended, or to keep Brian on and no longer have Sam as the representative for the GLUA board. Of course, this means the GLUA lasts any longer than tomorrow, but we need to make that decision today because that was part of the original motion. So certainly open the floor up for discussion on that. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't.
No, you don't.
We don't need a motion for this. This is.
He's just going by your notes.
Oh, I'm sure it is because I copied everything in each one. No, I'd like to hear some discussion. Ultimately, we need to. Okay, we can say, do we have a motion? I can pick one side or the other.
Doesn't matter.
Should you maybe wait until Sam's back so he can speak to the board directly?
He already told me what he would do.
Well, I'm curious because what you're telling me is different than the conversation.
He sent me an email, he sent me a text message that said, I asked him basically, do you want to continue or do you want to not? He said, I'd be honored to continue.
That's not quite the conversation him and I had.
Okay, either way, we're going to decide today. One way or the other.
What's the point? It sounds like Louis done anyways tomorrow, so why bother?
Because we have to decide today or we're exceeding the limits of what we said we would do. If we don't and GLUA continues, then we said we would revisit this discussion on the 19th, and today's the 19th.
So what's the bottom line question here? Do we want Brian or Sam?
The
Straight.
bottom line is, if you make a motion, we can, if it's a motion to
Is that what you're asking for, is
thank
discussion
Brian
about
for
that?
his service and bring Sam back on, or a motion to, how would it be worded to do that?
It's just a straight appointment.
Yeah, it's a straight, right.
To be revisited today, because it was only till the 19th.
No,
Right.
there's no end date.
I did say an end date, said it right in the meeting.
He did. Yeah.
I think I'd rather hear from Sam before we make a decision on his well-being. You've heard from him, but I haven't.
Well, I made a copy of the text because I was gonna bring it, but if it starts to get to where I wasn't there when he sent you that text, or I didn't hear him say it, yeah.
I'd like to extend the temporary appointment for another month.
Okay. Is there any other board
Oh,
discussion?
for Brian?
Yes.
Yeah, I got a text message from Sam too, says it's fine to go.
Yeah, he is fine. He said he was honored to continue to serve.
I like Sam, and I think Sam would do an excellent job, but I just want to, if he would have shown up at the meeting tonight, then I don't know where he's at right now.
He's on his way to Pennsylvania right now.
Oh, that's
Okay.
right. This is-
So I want Sam back on the board. I think Sam's does a good job. I respect him immensely, but I'd just like to extend the temporary thing for another month.
Okay, that's certainly an idea. Anything else?
This is yesterday at 1:30, so you'll be back on Lua if it still exists, the best of all worlds, and I won some money in Florida. We're talking about golf. He says, yes, on Lua, but he thinks it's the end game for Lua to have a funeral, blah, 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 but he said he's good to go. So that's the best I can tell you. That was
discussion will put an end to the misery here. All right, if there's no other discussion, I'll make a motion that we thank Ryan for his services and bring Sam back in as one of the Lyon Township representatives on GLUA. This is, I'm making a motion to bring Sam back today, so if there's no's or yeses, it would follow based on that. So I'll,
Is Sam gonna be at the meeting tomorrow?
No.
he won't be at the meeting. Let me rephrase that. Do we have a motion to today on the 19th, as we said we would, make a determination on continuing Sam Bedoyan as a GLUA board rep for Lyon Township? Stopping right there gets the job done. So do we have a motion to continue with Sam Bedoyan as a GLUA, Lyon Township GLUA rep? Me personally, I'll make the motion. Is there a second? Okay, so the motion does not carry. By default then, to avoid the hang-up on the 19th, would there be a motion to continue with Brian Cook as the representative on as the Lyon Township representative on the GLUA board? Do we have that motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we continue Brian Cook as a representative on the board for the next 30 days.
Okay, we can certainly amend the motion to represent that.
I'll second Steve's motion.
Okay. Well then, do we have a motion on continuing Brian's appointment to the Lyon Township representative on GLUA board for another 30 days?
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, then we have the motion. Is there any other additional discussion on it? I don't have any. Anybody else does? Okay. Then, on that motion, as stated, all those in support? This isn't about the money, but all those in support signify by saying aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
Opposed would be me. So the motion carries. Okay. Next, and thank God last. No, it's probably not last. Close. We're getting close. Number 10, discussion on the budget. The background on this is a lot of plans were laid initially to try and really deconstruct the budget and get into the line items. As time went on, it became very, very difficult. The only way to do it is to understand BSNA intimately. BSNA offered us a 3 to 6 month training program, which was completely infeasible because we're just rolling up on 3 months. We tried to find training from other sources and did, and some of it was successful and some of it wasn't. At our last meeting, I was pushing to set meeting dates, special meetings for budgets. We have now had some other CPAs come in. The bottom line is, if we're not going to deconstruct the thing, we can put some of that off into the future, but the budget needs to get done. I would entertain a motion that I do the budget without destructing everything to any great degree, and with some assistance from the treasurer's office and the clerk's office. But primarily, I would do it and create it in a situation that could be presented back to the board. I will not do that on my own without the board's support. So is there a motion that I then proceed to create the budget?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, do we have a second? Okay, we have a second, so we have a motion. Is there any further discussion on it?
Yeah, I have a question. the statutory duties that department heads must be involved with creating the budget. They must come forward. Where does that say this in this? Or is that just a foregone conclusion?
No, it was, basically, if you're not gonna tear it apart and do it line item by line item, you can do it a couple of different ways. One of them by using the last audit and making some adjustments based on future spending that you know you're gonna have, or future deficits that you know you're gonna have. You get yourself close and get in the ballpark, and then put the destructing part of going line item by line item into the future. Initially, I had thought you could not mess with like villages and stuff once you set the budget. Or into the CPAs you can. So for example, we would look at the fire department, make sure that we were squared away, that they were not in the red, and then revisit it in 3 months and start looking at all the line items that are in there. And at that point, both department heads would be involved, including the fire department head. It's just that to get that initial one out there and get it to the deadline by March 31st, it can be done in a manner where you don't try and tear it all apart. The CPAs had some great advice. I got another person coming tomorrow who does have intimate knowledge with BSNA. We're slowly making incremental progress on that. I just don't see that we're gonna have the time to do it any other way. I tried to make that happen. Let's just say I didn't win those arguments. So if we go to the future with the fire department and building inspection is in the red, nobody knows why. We need to get into that. All we can do, they identified 2 areas that we have to make immediate amendments on because they're screwed up. And then we would have to make amendments to cover what we are in the red on. Then we can get into it later. We can probably determine how and why it happened, but actually changing it and breaking it down, we're not gonna make it in the next 3 weeks.
So would we be passing a resolution for the General Appropriations Act before March 31st?
Yes, we have to pass budget. Well,
That's not the budget. That's the general.
the second part of this is we have to set the dates.
Okay.
So if I come up with a budget and I bring it to a meeting with us, and you guys all look at it, we can pass and approve it at that point, but then it needs to be posted for at least 7 days. And the way that the newspaper works, if we're having a meeting on Wednesday, we're like already behind the 8 ball on that. So you're kind of looking at somewhere around the 15th to the 17th, we need to have our meeting to do that. And then when we have that meeting, then we post it for a public hearing, which would be at least 7 days later, but there's got to be a 7-day period of notification. So it was looking like initially that somewhere around the 25th or 26th would be like the public hearing part of it. Still gives us time to accept good input from the public and still change it, right to the end. It's got to be done by the 31st. So that's the discussion on it. So this certainly involves money.
Well, we haven't finished discussion because you haven't asked for the rest of the board yet.
Oh,
Well,
I didn't wait long enough. All right.
All right, yes, he said pretty much we can go with the old budget and do a little tweaking, but definitely add in the things we already know are there, which is raises for some of the employees. And you can build that right into the budget that you're using from last year, except add those things in. And those were perfectly acceptable as far as they were concerned. And I said, well, okay, that's fine. That seems good as far as we go. And I said, but at least it gives you a start. And you can have you have a good thing, and you know those things took place, those raises and salaries. And as far as the other stuff, yeah, tweak it as you go along, that's what he said. And I think that makes the most sense to me.
When I went to the township training in January, that was the recommended way to start the budget.
Thanks, sir.
I just totally think that's government for you. Tweak it as you go. That's just.
Yeah, this is not my preferred method, but it's the method that will work, and and we will decide right now if that's the method we're gonna use, if the discussion is over from the board. Okay, we'll end the discussion. So as stated, do we have a motion that Supervisor Bertrand creates the budget and brings it back to the board in an appropriate amount of time so that we can get this done before the 31st?
I make the motion.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. I don't know that we need any more discussion on it. Clerk Byrne, if you would do a roll call vote on that, that would make me happy anyway.
All right, Supervisor Bertrand,
Yes.
Treasurer Hunt,
Yes.
Trustee Detmer,
Yes.
Trustee Monet,
Yay.
Clerk Byrne, yes.
Okay, the motion carries. So we need to set a date for review by the board, and then on that day, we would post it for a public hearing. If anybody's got a calendar they can look at, would this coincide with either a work session or a board meeting? Like, what are the dates for those next month?
The work session is March 12th, should be the second Wednesday, and the board meeting is the 19th of March, both on Wednesdays, of course.
Okay, so do some staring at that. If we did it on the 19th and then tried to post it in the newspaper, we would probably miss the printing. And then if it came out in the newspaper, we're a week, that's 14 days total, probably we wouldn't make it, would we?
I don't know, I don't work for the paper, I don't know how they print.
Well, I mean, if we do it on a Wednesday, you're already, is that kind of right, Cheryl? That anything that happens Wednesday night, you're not getting in the paper tomorrow? Yeah, okay. So there's a possibility of a special meeting date that, that coincides better. Or what's the date on the work session?
12th. Wednesday the 12th.
I could probably be done by then. Do you want to set a date of the 12th that I would bring it back to the board then for review, and then we can post a public hearing date?
Sure.
Working for you guys? All right, set it at the 12th then. And if we post it,
What time though? You coincide with the work session?
well, that's what I was thinking, yeah, if you want to do it
Yeah.
that way. We're right at the work session, and then at that point, we would have to post something that gives enough notice for a public hearing. 14 days. Somewhere in the end of that, there has to be a period where on the 12th, if we do it, and I bring to you and we say, okay, this is it, and then it's available for public scrutiny for at least 7 days. But we can also post a day for a public, that should work. I believe that would work. So let's shoot for the 12th. Okay, any last words on that, 12th? At least for today, is looking like it'll work. Okay, I don't hear any. Last thing on the agenda is the dispersal of building inspector, the electrical inspector, and the plumbing inspector proposed contracts. I gave everybody a copy of them, and they're only here now for us to take with us and review. There are things we need to think about and consider, so I guess this is going to get put into the work session agenda. If you look at them, you'll see what they are. It is also was pointed out by the CPA that the building inspection fund is in the red seriously. One of the things I hope to find out before we start doing anything with contracts for the building department is what happened. The first CPA we had kind of indicated you can't go by running in the red because other money might come from tax revenue, there's other things that are coming in. You know, it might not be an accurate number. The latest information we're getting is, no, that's, the number that's there is there in the red, period. And we need to fix it or we're gonna be in violation of the state. So it's not like a magic tax number or taxes that came in is gonna drop in there and fix that 45,000. Something went seriously wrong. I have to figure that out. So the contracts are for the building inspector, the plumbing inspector, and the electrical inspector. We will have to have some conversations about those fellas. There's other options in the wind too. And the initial comments, we could sit here and read it for a half hour, but it's more like that, okay? So we'll have to revisit that, and right now I would say we're putting it right into the work session on the 12th. Okay, is there any other additional board comments on anything before we move into public comment? All right, you're not here, any? So, as always, with public comment, come on up, state your name and your address, and state your takes, or whatever you would like to say. Come on up, man.
Dan Richardson, Lyon Township. Couple of points.
Member of the Planning Commission.
And member of the Planning Commission. And first comment about the Planning Commission is that the alternative representative, although he doesn't have voting, or that the person doesn't have voting rights, it can be an active member of the commission and do stuff. And he would be, or that person would be, a voter if one of the other members does not show up to the meeting. The real thing I wanted to talk about real quickly is the septic ordinance that was referenced earlier in the meeting, that's currently on hold. And as I understand it, it is a point of sale ordinance, meaning that the inspections and all that only occur on a point of sale. I heartily disagree with.
Let me, it's point of sale time of title transfer.
Okay.
And the legal firm has assured us that they can work into that where there is no loophole to get around it on a title transfer within a family.
Okay, but my preference would be that inspections and pump outs occur much more frequently than that. They should be done not only at the point of sale, but also I think it should be done on all residents in the township. And if not that, at least residents that are close to the lake, and also residents that rent their place out. That we need to do something. If we don't have a sewer, we need to do something to make sure that the septics are in working order. Having it at point of sale doesn't make any sense to me, because many, many places around the lake are held for a long time. Case in point, the cottage that I have, my grandparents built it 77 years ago. It has never changed hands other than going to my father and then to me. So there are plenty of those like that. So I think we need to make sure that if we go forward with the septic ordinance, that it's more stringent than just point of sale.
I can say something to that. The initial move for ask on the lake shore was just the first step. Point of sale time of transfer would be the second step. There will be an inclusion. There's a little bit of a hitch on whether you want to talk about the whole township or the Higgins Lake Basin. There's arguments both ways on that. We will end up with something that includes the township. or the Higgins Lake Basin, I'm not sure where they'll go. But these are all steps we're gonna do incrementally. The state saying that they would come up with a septic ordinance froze us. You know?
They've been working on that for 15 years.
Yes, well, I'm done waiting, let's put it that way. But yeah, everything you're saying is a legitimate concern, and we're gonna try and build those pieces in there. It may not all come out at once, just like the first part was an ask. The second part would be point of sale time of transfer. The definition of timeframes for the rest of the people who we would expect that if they did not have one on record, got a septic inspection done. We need to work on that as a board, we have some differences, but I'm sure we're gonna come to some conclusions that work for everybody. So yes, you're absolutely right, and we're probably right there with you. It's just,
Okay, well, that's my comment, because
Mr. Richardson, did you think that was gonna be the end of it? The time transfer point of sale?
yes, I did. I did think that was going to be the end of it.
I guarantee you that we will have a septic ordinance of some sort in for everybody in the township.
Okay.
Everybody will have something.
Because we did have one in there, and it got rescinded by this board, repealed. And I disagreed then, and
Just the timing is all we're still fighting.
okay, I'm glad to hear that. I'll hold you to that.
yeah, please do. If it wouldn't have been for the state and that crazy legislative session in the lame duck, we'd probably have it already. We just put the brakes on to see what would happen.
Okay.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Thank you for being willing to serve. Is there any other public comments out there?
Yeah.
John?
Good evening, everybody. Me again. John Barta, Lyon Township. I really did not plan on saying anything, but I did notice on the agenda that there was the Ambets Lodge was on this agenda. And first of all, let me say that both of my grandfathers, my father, 5 of my uncles, 1 of my aunts were all veterans. So, and I regularly contribute to the Midwest Shelter for homeless veterans. So I support them. Okay, but I own property in Lyon Township, and I have to follow all of the rules that relate to that or forfeit my rights to that property. I have to pay property taxes, and I have to conform to zoning and land use regulations and building codes. And violations of any of those rules can result in loss of my right to own that property. You guys can take it, send it over to the town, to the county. The Ambets Lodge also has rules that it must follow. Under Michigan law, Tim probably knows this, MCL 211.7, that nonprofit veterans organizations that qualify for property tax exemptions are required to use the property exclusively for veterans-related purposes. According to that, the exemption must be applied for and monitored through the local assessor's office. So that probably would have, I don't know, 3 years ago, whenever this happened, probably would have been Julie Tatro. It was suspected that the Ambets Lodge was violating the state law, and consequently, Ambets financial records were lawfully requested by the township assessor. They were lawfully requested, okay? Ambets refused to supply the records to the township assessor, okay? Why did they refuse? What do they have to hide, okay? Their refusal is an indictment of their guilt. It's not uncommon, you can talk to a lot of people, there are people who rent those cabins down there who aren't vets, and they aren't family related to vets. And so I find, Paul, your exhaustion with this whole issue a farce, because you were just elected in November. You have the fiduciary responsibility to pursue that, and every single one of you guys do.
Well, let me interrupt you. It did go to the tribunal.
Well, the tribunal, yes, it did, but
Decision. It's not-
no, they didn't. What happened is someone here signed off on the stipulation that agreed, the tax tribunal, that was sent to the tax tribunal because AMVET said, no, we disagree, okay? And so the tax tribunal said, look, you AMVETs have got to send your financial records to the assessor, and they refused. And so someone on this board authorized the signing of the stipulation that then said, okay, we are going to agree that you are a nonprofit organization. The tax tribunal does not make that decision. Someone here signs off on the stipulation, or someone authorized our attorney to sign off on it. So our township attorney signed off on that, and someone here authorized, or the board authorized that attorney to sign off on that stipulation, which says, okay, we're going to agree that you are a nonprofit organization. And that's wrong, because you guys have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that those guys are paying their taxes if they're violating what they are, their stated purpose. And my question is that this is supposed to have gone through the township assessor, okay? And I heard today that we were on the hook for $14,000. And you know what? The Roscommon County schools, because of what you guys did, the Roscommon County schools, anybody who's a tax collecting authority in this county is going to have to pay that money back. And you know what? The $14,000 that we have to pay back, the school district is going to have to pay more than that, and so is the intermediate school district, because you guys didn't know. Did anybody talk to the assessor about this? Did you just go to the attorney? Where's that $14,000 going to come from? Are you going to expect everybody here to say, okay, you were exhausted and didn't want to do it, and you wanted to get it out of your, that's ridiculous. That makes no sense.
Could have kept fighting it, I guess, you're right.
You absolutely, you were expected to. There wasn't even a lawsuit.
Okay, I can give you some answers. I already stated that the board said we would follow legal advice, okay? At that point, we didn't give details, turned it over to them. When he said it was settled, he asked me, he said, based on what your board decided to do, I can sign this right now, and I said, go ahead. There's more to this story. When they first looked at this, they came back to me and said, there's some problems here. Your assessor didn't do their homework. They are tax exempt. Now, I'm not an attorney. I followed the attorney's advice, suggested to the board that these were the options. We decided to follow their advice. Go to the tax tribunal, turn it over to the judge. The judge ruled they are non-profit. I appreciate what you were saying, but this is the end of a lineage. I'm not exhausted from that. I'm exhausted because it turned into a he said, she said cat fight that did not need to happen. So I appreciate what you're saying, and go ahead, but I mean, I can give you that much information to fill you in on.
Well, the way that this ended up being settled, and if you look at the docket.
Yeah, keep it rolling too.
Well, if you look at the docket, the township signed off that, sure, the AMVETS is considered a nonprofit, okay? And so the assessor has the right to say, I need to see your financials, because if you are renting to people who are non-veterans and profiting from that, then you are violating that. And they refuse to give those records.
The fact that they violated it did not change that they were non-taxable from the get-go.
Well, sure, they are, but they're violating.
I'll tell you what, I'll give you another couple minutes and I want to.
Sure,
That's all I'm
sure.
gonna tell you.
Yeah, anybody can say, there's a lot of people can say they're nonprofits, but if they violate those rules and regulations, then they become suspect for nonprofit. And then you have to prove that you are nonprofit. And what happened is AMVETS was supposed to supply records and they refused. And that's, the tax tribunal said, you need to supply these, and they were refusing. And this board, somebody here authorized the attorney to sign off on the stipulation that agreed, yeah, okay. So somebody here said, all right, we're not gonna fight this anymore, so the attorney can sign off and we'll let you be, we're not gonna challenge this, we're not gonna ask for these records. And I find that there's a significant violation. And the fact that somebody, did you guys talk to Julie and ask her about the ramifications of this? Did anybody go to her and say, look, you're gonna be on the hook for $14,000? And the school district, and the intermediate school district, anybody who collects taxes on that is gonna end up having to pay, and the school district is gonna have to pay more than $14,000, I guarantee you. And I find the behavior of this board to do that as a violation of your fiduciary responsibility. To be exhausted by the fact that you don't want to pursue this is ridiculous.
Okay, thanks, John. Are there any other comments from the public?
Brian Cook, Lyon Township. Did you say $45,000 in the red for the building department? Because that's what I heard.
Don't quote me on that, it's up there. Yeah, considerable amount of money.
I think you got
It
to.
doesn't even make sense.
It doesn't make any sense, and you've got some major issues of money missing because it's not possible to happen. There's more than enough money comes in, there's way more money comes in than goes out based on how it's set up. So you can't be in the red. If you're in the red, you got a major issue. And it ain't with what you're collecting and paying out.
There's some things that need to be looked into, and we're gonna be looking into it.
I just wanted to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding that.
I wish Jeanette was still here because we were both looking at it.
I mean, we're talking over 10 grand.
It was a considerable
anyway.
amount of money, and it was the main thing that the CPA said, you got a problem here.
I mean, we're talking over 10 grand minimum.
I believe it was.
Okay. And I don't want to debate or anything else,
And
but.
again, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, there's revenue coming in that ain't there yet or something, and he's saying, nope.
No, it doesn't make any sense because of how it's set up, and I'm very familiar with that from being deputy clerk. So what I'm saying is there's no possible way to go in the red, so you guys got to figure something out there.
Yeah, in getting into the line items and into BS&A on that account, trying to figure out what's going on. And maybe there's just an error somewhere.
I'm thinking you got money somewhere else that should be there or something, but
Well,
yeah.
and a similar thing was happening with the fire department with the new fire
Yes,
truck.
yes,
The money's there, and but it's not showing up in the account right now.
yeah. On the website, the March board review meetings are scheduled out there, the organizational meeting and the 2 protest hearings.
This is for Lyon, right?
For Lyon Township Board of Review. Always in the past, we have scheduled a wrap-up meeting on Friday. The last 2 years, we've canceled that because we've had everything completed and finalized before that. We need a meeting scheduled because trying to schedule a meeting at the last minute isn't gonna work. So we need to have that scheduled, even though we know it's probably gonna be canceled.
Shoot me a date.
Cool. I just wanted to bring that up and see how you wanted me to handle it. All 3 of us went through training, our board review training yesterday. This is for the supervisor. There is one more Zoom meeting. I believe it's next week or something. It's coming up yet. I didn't think of this, but there was a lot of people on there that were supervisors. The supervisor is not required to take this course.
I thought I was only secretary.
Well,
Maybe not? Maybe I gotta sign up for something here?
well, see, I've been way more involved with scheduling and doing stuff this year than I've ever been.
I can do it.
These things have been taken care of. Well, things that were brought up in training yesterday, there's a whole list of things the supervisor is responsible for.
Great.
So that's why I'm
As
suggesting.
soon as I can hear it, 9:30.
And I didn't really pay too much attention to all those, so I'm letting you know there's requirements for the supervisor over and above being secretary on the board of review, and you might want to find out what those are.
Yeah, if you could send me an email with what you learned yesterday, that'd be great.
I don't know. I didn't pay attention to those because that wasn't my responsibility. What I'm letting you know is there's another training course coming up.
Okay.
I highly recommend you take it because I think it would give you a lot of
If
information.
I'm supposed to, I certainly will. I had thought up until this moment, this was a matter of accurate record keeping for you people.
Yeah, the board of review members are required to take it, and we have to file our certificate with everything that's submitted. The supervisors are not required to take it, but it appears a lot of them are, and what I'm saying is I think it would be very beneficial for you.
Okay?
Thanks.
Got it. Yay. Any other public comments? Patty, all right.
I am tired, like I'm sure all of you are. Patty Dennis, Lyon Township. You know, I've listened to a lot of talk this evening about GLUA, about funding. And I guess I just need to go back to questioning how this board is representing all the taxpayers in this township. Because I think you believe that you are in the majority of no support for a sewer. And at this point, I realize it's a moot point because you have the power to do what you did. And you also had the power to not be willing to work with GLUA and Garish Township for some middle-of-the-road operation in which this money could have been used for, because you made it very clear that you were not in favor of a dime of it moving forward a sewer project. I want to remind you that a majority of people in the SAD did sign yes petitions for a sewer, whether you look at it per land or by number in a household. And so I'm very disappointed that when you came in, you chose to immediately react rather than thoughtfully respond about what is best in a way to move this township forward. I also realize that every word I say is falling off of you like water on a duck because of who I am and because of my position on the sewer. I am disappointed, Paul, to hear you say tonight that any data that the Higgins Lake, Health of Higgins Lake, or whatever they're calling the initiative to try to bring this community together for the health of Higgins Lake, that you clearly stated tonight that you have already decided that any data they come up with will not be valid, and that it's going to point to a problem with nitrates. So I'm disappointed that you are not even willing to be open-minded about what the data might show. So I don't know what to do about that either. But when it comes to the money, I want to give the rest of the board a little background on my understanding of this $1 million, because I was part of a group that was very instrumental in applying for that grant. That at first, when we were trying to get a sewer thing going around here, people opposed to that criticized GLUA because they didn't get any money. Well, we couldn't apply for money realistically until we had a project. We didn't do that until Labor Day of last year. After we got the project, we applied, got a $1 million grant. Those people opposed made fun of that and said, it's nothing. They dismissed it. Now that we're potentially losing that money, people are like, oh, we don't want to lose that money. Well, that money was designed for a sewer project. Also, background information for those people that may not know, we were also in talks with Bergman's office and the EPA for a $5 million grant for the following year. But people opposed to the sewer contacted Bergman's office and stated that, no, we don't, this community doesn't really want a sewer. Again, I don't know where that information is coming from and what data you have to completely support that. So a politician doesn't want to get in the middle of a fight in a community. So then the talk was, well, we'll maybe give you $750,000. Well, as you can see now, all of this is off the table. I don't see any reason for GLUA to continue, and it hurts my heart to say that. But I don't see any reason because this board was not willing to even consider some kind of middle-of-the-ground proposal. You came in and you canceled everything that was done by the previous board without thoughtful consideration, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. Point taken. Is there any other comment from the public? Okay, I think it wraps that part up. So, gentlemen, and people in the audience, I would entertain a motion that we adjourn this meeting. Do we have that motion?
I make the motion.
Do we have a second? Okay, we have the motion to adjourn. All those in support of adjourning signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nay is the same. Okay, the meeting is adjourned.